Now we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, copywriting as a business. I think it's one of the greatest businesses you can run. And I'm going to show you in this segment how to get bigger fees from fewer clients, have less work and less stress in your life. Or, as I alternately like to call this section, this is how I learned to stop worrying and just make more money. Here's what we're going to cover. We're going to cover the problems copywriters face, why those problems are even worse than they appear at first, how I solved the problems by accident, and then I'll give you the 7 pillars of a high-fee, low-stress copywriting business. Let's get going. The first problem is unfortunately fairly common. A lot of people get into this business based on the promise or the idea that they're going to make a lot of money. It's going to be easy. They can work from wherever they want, whenever they want, any time of the day, and get paid big money. And while there is truth to all of those concepts as a freelance copywriter, there's also truth in the fact that it takes work to build a business. So as long as you don't go into this business with the idea that this is a get-rich-quick scheme, you're going to be fine. Just understand it's going to take a little time and a little effort to build your business. The second problem that many of us face as copywriters is the feast or famine situation. And this is not just restricted to copywriters, it's really true of any freelancer. It seems like as a freelance person or an independent business person, we either have more work than we can handle and we're totally covered up and we're stressed out, we're not sleeping, we're running ourselves ragged, or we have no work at all in the pipeline and we're worried about how we're going to pay the bills next month. Feast or famine. How do we deal with this problem? We're going to get into that. Then there's the low ball with the promise game. This is where a really prominent company or person tries to lure you in as a new copywriter. They see that you're talented, they see that you have a special skill with the story brand framework, and they figure they'll get you for cheap before you realize how much you're worth. So what they'll usually offer is something like this. Ray, I'll pay you a little bit of money right now, and I'll pay you more money if it works. These are the kind of deals you don't want to get involved in because most of the time, you're going to do a lot of work and they're going to pay you very little money. Then come the rate grinders. These are the people who will do their best to grind you down to the lowest possible fee you will accept for the work. They make you feel cheap, they make you feel used, they make you feel humiliated, and you don't want to be in a situation where you're having to deal with rate grinders. The next problem you'll face is a kissing cousin to the rate grinder problem. That's deadbeats who don't pay. It's true. Some people will let you do a lot of work, do it really well, and then they will disappear when it comes time to pay you. This is something you're going to want to avoid at all costs. And finally, there are the one-night stands. You work so hard to bring in a new client. You do a great job for them. You learn about their business. You take time to become emotionally invested in the outcome, and they never call you back. Do you feel cheap? Do you feel used? I'm going to show you how to overcome this. But first, here's why it's even worse than it appears. You can imagine that all the things I just covered bring you a lot of stress. And usually that's accompanied by money problems. And those two things are kind of a vicious cycle. You get stressed, you do some of the wrong things, you have more money problems, you get more stressed, and it just seems to never end. And this begins to wear down on your health, both mentally and physically. It affects your family. It can bring up a lot of spiritual issues as well, because if you're just focused on scrambling desperately to survive or dealing with people you don't like as your clients, trust me, any spiritual baggage you're dealing with will come to the surface. And finally, as if all that wasn't bad enough, this situation affects the quality of your work. So you're generating work that is far below the quality that you are really capable of. Now, I solved these problems by accident. In my early days as a freelancer, I was getting paid about $7,500 to write a sales letter. I got a phone call from someone who was referred to me by a mutual friend. Now, I was kind of stuck. I had been planning to take the holidays off, and this was a friend of a friend, so I didn't want to let them down. They were kind of with their back against the wall. They needed this copy written fast. So I figured that what I would do is price myself out of their league. So instead of telling them I would charge $7,500 for their copy, I told them it would be $15,000. And much to my surprise, their response was, okay, how do we send the money to you? Do you need a check? Do you need a wire, bank deposit? So I reconsidered my idea that I did not want to work during the holidays, and I took the assignment. You'd think I would have learned my lesson by now, but this situation came up again when I was approached by a client I did not want to work with. This person had a reputation of being difficult to work with. And so my strategy was, because I was now getting paid $15,000 per sales letter, to tell him that it would be $30,000 to write his copy. And I heard him on the phone tapping on a calculator as he muttered, okay, so we're gonna make $3 million and we're gonna pay these expenses, and sure, $30,000 will be fine. So I said yes, and I realized I had not asked for enough money, because this was the first time I had the perspective that I was being bought at wholesale and sold at retail. And that's not a bad thing. That's how business works. But the important point of this story is you need to know what your value is. What's the outcome for the client? Think in terms of value-based selling. What are they going to receive as a benefit of your services, and price yourself accordingly. And just to stretch your imagination one level further, a few summers after that, we were going to take a 3-month family vacation. Me, my wife, my son, our 2 dogs, and our motorhome, we had planned to travel the entire United States for 3 months. And I got a call literally on the day we were leaving from a person who had seen me speak at an event and said, we want to hire you to write the copy for our new product. And I really did not want to take the job. So I said, that'll be $50,000. You have to pay up front, and I can't start until August. And this person did not immediately say, let me send you the money. He said, well, I need to think about that. I was greatly relieved, because let me think about that means no. Except in this case, that's not what it meant. The next morning, my phone rang, and it was this gentleman, and he said, we are ready to go to work with you. We're wiring you the $50,000 today. Just give me the bank info. So, what's my point? It's not to suggest that you need to charge $50,000 or $30,000 for your work, especially if you're just a beginner. But you need to understand that your work is worth more than you probably think it is. So charge your fees appropriately, but charge enough so that you're getting compensated fairly for the work that you're doing. And as you gain more experience and more success in writing copy, you will be able to command these higher fees.